So the next thing we did in our unit was this idea of combining like terms. So the idea is that in a mathematical expression, when you have things being added together or subtracted together, which is really just adding the opposite, right? You can combine terms that have the same variable and power arrangement, right? So let's talk about that. So basically, you can't add apples and oranges, but if they're both apples, you can put them together. Before we can actually talk about that, though, we have to talk about defining some of these words that help us identify the terms. So the first thing, let's see if we have an example like this. Okay, so here we have three terms. We have this term, we have this term, and we have this term. Okay, now each term is different from the others because they don't have the same power in variable combinations. Yes, there's two n's in here, but one of them is n to the power of 2, and that breaks the rules. You're not supposed to do that if you're trying to combine terms. You can't combine anything here, but I'm using this to define the things. These numbers, the 5 and the 3, they will be called coefficients, and they're a coefficient because they are multiplying or dividing out a variable. This little number right here is called a power. By the way, there is a power always in there. You have a power here also on the end is just 1. And things which are to the power of 1, you don't have to put the 1. But there's always a power. And even here, you should technically have n to the power of 0, which is not really showing right now. But n to the power, anything to the power of 0 is just 1. So it's like it's not even there. It's just multiplied times 1. But that's not important for 7th grade. But basically, there's always a power, even if it's not seen to be there. So if it's not up there, it's just to the power of 0. But anyways, without getting to that, the powers make these terms different. There's also these letters, right? So what are these letters called? The letters are called variables. And even though the variable here is the same, because their power is different, you cannot put them together because they're not the same letter, right? Finally, numbers without variables or variables to the power of 0, like I just said, are called constants, all right? And these are also not possible to add to the others because they're not the same, right? Okay, so then with that information, you can then figure out how to combine like terms. The idea is if the terms have the same power in letter arrangement, you can put them together. So for example, if you have 8x minus 3y plus 2x minus y plus 8, right? And I know it's not really fitting on my camera. I should probably have written it a little smaller, but yeah. Sorry about that. So what we're going to do is, oh, that's really crappy. I'm going to rewrite it. Okay. 8x minus 3y plus 2x plus y plus 8. Okay? And we're going to have to find terms which are the same here. Now, you notice this is an x, and this also have an x. So we can actually identify that these two are the same term. Likewise, this right here has a negative 3y, and this also has a y. So they're also the same type of term. So we can put those together. And I do actually like to put the little boxes around it because it helps me figure it out. But if you have 8x and 2x, that makes 10 x's. Oh, that's a lot of x's to deal with. Hopefully you don't have that many x's. Not in 7th grade anyways. But what if you have negative 3y plus y? Well, that makes negative 2y, right? One of those positive y's cancels out one of those negative y's. And then the 8 doesn't have anything to be added to, so you just got this. And this is as simple as you can write it after combining like terms. So let's try one more of those and see what we can do. So let's say 8xy plus 8y plus 7x minus 2y. All right. Oh, and let's do plus 3x. Okay. Which terms are alike here? You might be tempted to see an 8x in here, but this doesn't have the same letter to combination of everybody else. There's an xy, so that's actually a term on itself. But you can combine the 8y and the 2y to make, and you can copy the part that doesn't have a cousin, right? And 8 minus 2 is 6y, and then the 4x, the 7x, and the 3x can be combined to a 10x. And that's how you combine like terms, people. Just put them together. Don't forget there are more examples also sitting in the unit review for you to